Top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The sights and sounds out of Puerto Rico as we prepare for what's supposed to be Amanda Serrano's homecoming fight opposite the ring, Nina Meinke. Nina, who says, much respect to Amanda, that she started equality in boxing. I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Scheduled for 12 3-minute rounds.
Unlike this past weekend's contest, which was scheduled for 10-2s, you have to wonder, how would Jonas versus Mayer have played out if Michaela would have had that additional minute in every single round for 12 rounds? Much respect to Amanda that she started the equality in boxing, Meinke said during a press conference in San Juan to formally announce the event. It's not just talking, it's doing it. I'm very proud to be a part of it. For me, it was no question to do it. Meinke has fought over the traditional 2-minute round mark throughout her 8-year career, and never more than 10 rounds. This will be her first under a distance normally afforded in men's title fights, as well as her first career fight outside of Europe.
It's kind of what makes this important for Amanda Serrano, championing this cause and trying to normalize 12 3-minute rounds instead of 10 2-minute rounds. Fights like this past weekend's fight.
How would that fight have ended if it were for 12 3s instead of 10 2s? An overwhelming amount of people agree that Michaela Mayer did more than enough to win on the judges' scorecards, and the judges screwed her with 12 3s instead of 10 2s. Perhaps she would have had more chances to take it out of the judges' hands so they don't screw her. Food for thought.
But the difference between that fight and this one is that Michaela Mayer was the challenger, Natasha was the champion, and Michaela Mayer did not have the leverage to make the fight for 12 3-minute rounds instead of 10 2s. She didn't have the leverage that Amanda has in this situation.
And I remember ahead of the Jonas fight, Michaela Mayer said she wanted it to be for 12 3s, but Natasha wasn't on board. She didn't want that, and she's the champion. She's the house fighter. The promotion, the money, it's all behind her, so you saw what happened. Whereas in this situation, Amanda's the A-side. Amanda calls the shots, and if she wants 12 3s, she gets 12 3s. That's the difference.
She's the boss.
She's going to be sharing the ring with Nina Meinke very soon. Nina, who said, as soon as we got the information that we were going to fight Amanda Serrano, I was right back in the gym and preparing for it. Nothing really changed for me. We train with men and train 3-minute rounds anyway. The training is obviously more intense, but I'm used to 3-minute rounds. I'm really proud to be a part of this movement. And as it pertains to Nina, and as it pertains to this fight, well, Nina's nickname is Nina the Brave. Brave is one way to describe her for taking on this fight, because I don't see an avenue of opportunity. I don't see an avenue, none whatsoever, for the victory.
God bless her, but Nina doesn't stand a chance.
There's no way she wins this fight. From a physical perspective, a tactical perspective, she's outmatched.
She is.
In every department. Thus, she's very brave.
She is.
Very courageous for doing this, and doing it for 12 3-minute rounds. I don't think Nina goes the distance. Nina has been stopped before, at least once, some years ago.
By Katie Taylor.
And Katie's not the biggest puncher. She's got a lot of other tools, other fine qualities, but power, concussive power, is not one among them. She was able to stop Nina Meinke via accumulation, combination punching.
And Amanda's a combination puncher with more power, I'd say, more concussive power than Katie Taylor, because she actually hurt Katie Taylor when they fought. Almost got her out of there.
I think she's gonna hurt Nina. I don't think this one goes the distance. In Amanda's last fight, she shared the ring with Brazil's own Danila Ramos, who showed great powers of recovery and durability. I remember Amanda hurting her throughout the course of the fight, but Danila beat those feet, and she was able to hang tough. She was able to survive, and it helps that Danila Ramos, she had never been stopped before, whereas Nina has.
I think Amanda's gonna stop her. Nina doesn't have the firepower to keep her off,
nor the durability to endure what gets in, or the boxing acumen to work around the volume punching and the power of Amanda Serrano. In truth, this fight is more about the occasion. Amanda fighting on home turf, on her island of Puerto Rico. It's more about that than the opponent. And the tickets, they seem to be selling well. And I think Amanda Serrano, she's going to deliver for the fans. I think she's going to deliver them a knockout. She's way too prolific a puncher for Nina. Too strong and too experienced. I think Amanda's going to stop Nina.
Showtime gave me something to go.
for boxing. You know what I'm saying? So that performance, I don't even want to think about it. It was horrible. It was a bad night for boxing that night.
It was bad, but let me ask you this, because I watched it, and it was like painfully boring, right? We all know that, but it made me think to myself. It did show that if he wants to stay away, he's like a rabbit. Like, he could stay away. So
yeah, but do the fans pay for that?
No, but what I was going to ask you was, let's say he fights Tank. Do you see any problem at all being like, if he wants to stay away, like, you can't catch him? It's really hard to catch him.
But why would I put Tank in a situation like that when we can't do what we do? Because right now, if Tank don't get a knockout, it's gonna. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you know, because everybody think Tank got to knock everybody out to win a fight. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You with me? Because that stab was on him.
Okay.
That is Gervonta Davis's longtime trainer, Calvin Ford, completely ruling out the possibility of a Gervonta Davis versus Shakur Stevenson fight on the premise that he doesn't think Gervonta can knock him out. He doesn't think Gervonta can catch up to him and knock him out the way he did Rolly Romero and Mario Barrios and Leo Santa Cruz. Isn't this what I've been telling you all along? Isn't this what I've been saying in video after video? That Gervonta Davis is only really a good counterpuncher against certain kinds of fighters. He's more limited than the matchmaking would have you believe, that he needs the other guy to come to him so he can set him up for a hard counter, because if he has to pursue him, if he has to chase him, well, he's going to be a bit more vulnerable. Not dissimilar from what you see in Teofimo Lopez or Regis Prograis. These boxer punchers, counter punchers,
They're more alike than people realize.
we've been all through the science behind this. It seems that Calvin Ford quite inadvertently confirmed what I've been telling you all along, that he's not confident Gervonta Davis can knock out Shakur Stevenson. He's one of these talkative types, one of these guys that if you let him talk long enough, we'll all end up in county. These are his own words. Why would I put Tank in a situation like that when we can't do what we do? Well, what is it you can't do? You don't think you can knock out Shakur Stevenson?
Why not?
It's because Shakur is a taller, longer, more economic boxer than the boxers Gervonta Davis normally fights. Gervonta relies on a guy who's going to step into his jab to bring other punches over and string together a combination so that he can, in turn, catch them in between. But you won't get that opportunity with Shakur, and you won't get that opportunity with Devin. Shakur and Devin have the same base style, even though they fight out of different stances. Shakur is a southpaw, whereas Devin is an orthodox fighter, but they're both pure boxers.
And Gervonta doesn't fight boxers. He fights scrappers, limited ones.
Now, how many times have I told you that?
How many?
This admission from Calvin Ford is damning enough that if you're observant, if you're paying attention, you'll know why Gervonta hasn't fought any of his contemporaries. You'll know why he's not about to fight Devin
Or Shakur.
You know, with Devin, they're using rehydration weight as the excuse, that Devin rehydrates too much. He's too big for Gervonta Davis. But what about Shakur? With Shakur, you don't need weight stipulations because he's right there. He's right there at lightweight with Gervonta, and with him the excuse is, well, he doesn't rack up enough knockouts. He's not entertaining. Isn't that your job too? I mean, if he's keeping away and moving lateral, is it not your responsibility to cut off the ring and get to him, then unload?
Calvin doesn't think he can do that. Calvin doesn't think he can catch up to Shakur and knock him out. In so many words, that's what he said. Why would we put Tank in a situation like that when we can't do what we do? So you're admitting you can't knock out Shakur.
If you can't knock out Shakur, if you can't catch up to him and keep on him, he might beat you. He might pile up the points, win the rounds, and win the fight. And they're not going to put Gervonta in a situation like that. It's very obvious.
It's established. You're not fighting Devin, but you're not fighting Shakur. And you never fought Teofimo or Vasyl Lomachenko.
Rumors abound, at least in some circles, Gervonta Davis might end up fighting Frank Martin, unbeaten up-and-comer on that side of things, who literally swerved Shakur Stevenson last year to do absolutely nothing the rest of the year, because he didn't fight.
All he did was post a bunch of selfies on Instagram.
The rumor mill is spinning, some suggesting that the big fight that Frank Martin has been hinting at is a Gervonta Davis fight, though I'm not convinced. And even if he does end up fighting Gervonta, enough time has passed that it wasn't an either-or situation. You could have fought Shakur last year and still fought Gervonta. this year, especially if it's all the way out there in March, at the end of March. There's enough time there to have done both. But therein lies the dilemma.
What?
If you would have fought Shakur, you wouldn't have made it to Gervonta because you would have lost.
So don't try to use a Gervonta Davis fight as a way to save face for Frank Martin. You ducked Shakur Stevenson. There's no getting around it.
And by all rights, as boring as Shakur's last fight was, both Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis are both ducking him. Because if they felt they would beat him and they could beat him, they'd fight him.
It's not rocket science.
And this is why I said in my previous video, Shakur Stevenson needs to think long and hard about whether or not he should change his decorum. Because if you go to the PBC thinking it's going to bring you closer to a Davis fight, it might not. Shakur's been talking about how his top rank deal is going to be up this year. He's going to be a free agent. And if he gets it in his head that he should go to the PBC to pursue Gervonta, that may be a fruitless endeavor. Thus, he might need to stay put. Pursue the winner of Lomachenko versus Kambosos, because you would sooner get the winner of that fight than a fight with Gervonta. They're not going to let it happen.
How much more obvious does it need to be?
And that's if the PBC is even willing to have you, because your contract minimum at top rank, but they've been paying Shakur, they've been paying him well, somewhere in the neighborhood of between $2 to $3 million per fight. We don't know here and now that the PBC has that kind of money for Shakur, and we don't know here and now that the PBC even has fight dates for Shakur. They don't have anything on schedule until 3 months into this year.
So he better think long and hard about what he wants to do.
Now, as far as Calvin Ford and what he said, that damning admission, well, I'm not surprised. That's what I've been telling you. They are not going to put Gervonta Davis in the ring with a pure boxer the likes of Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson. It won't happen. And finally, upstairs at Super Lightweight, per a tweet from Dan Raphael, per sources involved, sides are trying to finalize a Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero fight. If they do the fight, it would take place April 20th and headline a DAZN pay-per-view in Las Vegas, where last week this fight was falling apart. This week, they're trying to finalize it. That's how things move in the sport of boxing. News is fluid and ever-changing. And it's interesting because if Rolly's fighting Ryan, he's not fighting Isaac Cruz, who he called out last week.
Which would then mean Isaac needs a dance partner, because if he's not fighting Rolly and he's not fighting Ryan, what is he gonna do? Well, maybe that's the fight that Frank Martin has been hinting at. The big fight he's been hinting at via his social media. Maybe Frank Martin and Isaac Cruz are about to fight on somebody's undercard.
While Ryan and Rolly are fighting each other, a word from boxing insider Rick Glacier to curb our enthusiasm. Rumors abound of a Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero fight for April. These two guys are the biggest flakes in boxing. Let's wait till the signatures are on the contracts before anyone gets too excited about it. Till then, not being negative, just a quote-unquote slowdown warning about these two. Let's not go putting the cart before the horse and counting our chickens before they're hatched.
The thing is that Rolly doesn't have that many options.
I think this fight could happen and will happen because Rolly doesn't have that much to choose from. If he wants to keep his belt, he has to fight Ishmael again, and fighting Ishmael again is dangerous. If you give him another shot, he might beat you.
He might get you this time. He knocked out O'Hara Davies in just one round. You give him another shot, he might do the same thing to you, and if he does, it'll be for a lot less money than you would have made, could have made, fighting Ryan.
Yeah, Rolly's stupid. He might be stupid, but his team isn't. They know how limited this fighter is, and they know that a loss for him, it's right around the corner. So it's all about what loss pays you better. And you're better off rolling the dice with Ryan on the Golden Boy side of things than fighting those guys on your own, because one of those guys, they might beat you.
Whether it's Ishmael Barroso or Isaac Cruz. Fighting Isaac, that might have required Rolly to give up his WBA title. You give up that title, what are you worth?
Not for the grab, Asson. Every boxer with two hands and a pulse thinks they're God's gift to boxing. They all think they're stars or they're going to be stars. But in reality, your stardom, what it's worth, it's got a number. And Rolly's without a belt?
What's his market value? If you put him on pay-per-view with Isaac Cruz or Ishmael Barroso, what kind of numbers is that going to do?
It's time to get real.
Ryan is the best option for Rolly, and Rolly is the best option for Ryan because they're both limited and they're both vulnerable. We know that Rolly is strong and Ryan is chinny and Ryan is fast and Rolly's retarded.
And if they finalize this fight and they make it and Ryan actually wins, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of numbers it brings in. What does it do at the box office? Because if Ryan ends up selling more pay-per-views than Gervonta did,
Rolly is a common opponent between them.
with Rolly Romero, Gervonta Davis is said to have brought in just under 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, I know that those numbers and those leaks that are leaked to the media, they are often exaggerated, but let's just go with it. Let's just go with that number. What was it? 275,000 pay-per-view buys. What if Ryan sells that, or a little over that? Hell, what if Ryan sells 500,000 pay-per-view buys with Rolly Romero? Well, that would be more than Gervonta sold with Rolly Romero, but Gervonta's the one they like to call the face of boxing. If you're the face, how could Ryan end up selling more pay-per-views with Rolly than you did?
If you're the face.
That's just food for thought. A question that is going to need an answer if this fight gets finalized and Ryan either matches Gervonta Davis's numbers or surpasses them. And when is Gervonta Davis's next fight, and what is he going to bring in with that fight? What are his numbers going to look like? Can you bring in the same numbers with a Rayo that you brought in with Ryan? Can you bring in the same numbers with a Frank Martin that you brought in with Ryan? Because if you can't, the jig is up, and you're not the face of anything.
You're not the face of boxing.
Not if you can't keep up the standard. Being the face of boxing is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not the face of boxing just because you did decent numbers once, because you had Ryan to help you sell the fight, then afterwards you pretended like you sold the whole goddamn thing yourself. It doesn't fool anyone. Least of all, if Ryan does the same or more numbers than you did with the same guy, with Rolly, because how could you be the face of boxing if he's doing those numbers? It's gonna get interesting.